So Nick, I'll go to you next.
I forgot the exact question.
I forgot the question too, man.
A
Honestly,
new musky angler.
Yeah.
What's up, yins, guys? Welcome back to Fishing PA with Ryan Reed. Now, you guys know that I spent all of last year chasing muskies. I wanted to learn as much as I possibly could about muskie fishing and really the muskie as a whole. Now, one resource that has helped me immensely has been Muskies Inc. You guys know that I try to mention Muskies Inc., particularly Chapter 16, as much as possible in my videos. Now, one of the things that I've learned from guys through Muskies Inc. is bait selection. And really, guys, where I spent a lot of my money in 2020 was trying to secure baits that were locally made to Pennsylvania and really baits that are considered somewhat legendary because they just continue to put fish in the net year after year after year. So all of 2020, I was on a mission to buy up as many Wiley Musky Lures as humanly possible. You guys know Dale Wiley is a legend in Pennsylvania. He makes a wide variety of lures. He's made some casting lures. He's made a lot of trolling lures. He's made big lures like this, and he's made small lures like that. And really, Dale has made a lure for every scenario of musky fishing on pretty much any body of water. So what I wanted to do in this episode, guys, something a little different for you. I wanted to pull some resources from the club, and I pulled a few members of Muskies Inc. Chapter 16 to come on and have a discussion about Wiley Lures. Now, this is honestly, it's been on my list to do this for months and months and months, ever since COVID hit. Never had the time to do the Zoom thing. Tonight, we are going to give it a shot. So with that said, I've got a good friend of mine, Nick Feisler, a good friend of mine, Charlie Mueller, who is the secretary of Chapter 16 Muskies Inc., and also Joel Morrow, our Chapter 16 president. Now, guys, this one's a long video, but pay attention. Really watch this. Listen to guys like Joel and Charlie and Nick. They give you a lot of interesting information when it comes to fishing with Wiley lures and really just musky fishing in general. So let's go ahead, jump on the call, and let's see what kind of information we can bring to you guys.
All right, guys. So here we are. We've got a few guests on tonight, starting with Mr. Nick Feisler. He goes by Larissa secretly.
Yep.
So we also have Charlie Mueller, and we've got Mr. Joel Morrow. So it just so happens that all four of us are members of Chapter 16 Muskies Inc. And here in Western Pennsylvania. So Charlie, you are currently the secretary, correct? And
Yes,
Joel,
sir.
you are currently the president of our chapter.
Correct.
Awesome. So Nick, we are just members riding coattails tonight.
Correct.
All right. So
Bodies.
this is really the first time I've had the opportunity to do a Zoom call in this type of a format. So I thought this would be kind of interesting tonight. We're going to get in, and the topic for discussion is going to be Wiley Lures. So Wiley Musky Lures. Now, looking at this particular group of people, got myself that's pretty green when it comes to musky fishing still. Got a couple years under my belt, really one full dedicated year. And then I've got some more experience here with Nick and Charlie. You guys have been doing it for, Nick, how long have you been musky fishing for?
Pretty seriously since probably 2012.
Okay. So you've got 8-9 years now.
Yeah.
And
Charlie, a lot of that
Charlie,
was just casting in the dark and not catching a lot. And then kind of started to really figure it out 4 years ago.
Nice. And I'm still there casting in the dark, unless I'm with Charlie or you and riding coattails again. So Charlie, how long have you been fishing for muskies?
2019, really.
2019. So you got a couple years.
This will be coming in my third full year, really.
Okay. And Joel, how long have you been fishing for muskies for?
I started like 2007.
2007.
So going on like this will be the 14th season, I guess.
Okay. So I mean that's pretty varying. I've only been at this like 4 or 5 years now, and really last year was my first full year. So this is, to me, this is pretty exciting because we got a good mix of experience to talk about what I'm learning would be considered as a legendary bait, particularly for our area here in Pennsylvania. So I guess that's the topic for tonight. We want to talk about Wiley Lures. Hopefully, give you guys some good information. Hopefully, extract some good information from this group of talented fishermen, and we will see what happens. So, first thing I want to get into is Muskies Inc. Really, if it wasn't for Muskies Inc., I wouldn't have met any of you guys on the call right now. Um,
I was just pointing to Joel for that.
Oh, he's down here on my side.
Like,
I'm
pointing at him because that's the guy that's running the whole show.
That's my president.
That's my president right there. So, yeah, I mean, if it wasn't for Muskies Inc., I wouldn't have met you guys. The club has been, to me, it's been a huge resource to learn about muskies and muskie fishing. My only regret is not spending more time at meetings. I think meetings are super valuable. The events that Chapter 16 has is awesome, with the lure swap and some of the other events throughout the year. I mean, there's the banquet and some of that stuff that we didn't really get to do last year because of the COVID scenario. But, all in all, the club it's an amazing thing for our areas, particularly for muskie fishermen. So I guess I just want to take some time to plug the club. So is there anything you guys want to mention about the club?
I guess I would say, even if somebody isn't sure if they want to join a club or they just want to come out to some of the events, I mean, for the most part, most everything's open to the public. It's not necessarily required to be a member to come to anything, especially tournaments. The lure swap, which we are going to have this year, I did get confirmation. We're going to have it on a Friday evening, March 12th, at the Northside Sportsman's Club. So, like I said, everybody can come out. Since the Muskie Max was canceled, figured we'd try to have something, involving, getting people out. Hopefully by then the weather's going to start to break a little bit. We'll be looking forward to spring. Other than that, like I said, if you want to, if nothing, just come out to a meeting. If we have something interesting going on, feel free to come out. Contact me. My information is always on the internet through Facebook. Probably, if you don't have my contact info, that'd be the easiest way to get a hold of me.
All right, cool. Just real quick.
One thing I'd like to say on the topic too is 2018 was my first year really fishing muskies at all. I went out casting by myself 9 days. In those 9 days, I hooked up to 7 fish. I never got a one to hit the bag. And then I started going to the meetings, listening to what guys like Joel and everybody else had to say, and just coming in with an open mind. And then the next year I caught, I think it was 46 or 48. So, I mean, there was a drastic improvement between 0 and that number just from listening to the tips that guys that I got from talk to going to the meetings. And one of the pluses you'll get from going to the meetings is the guys that go to the meetings are willing to talk about the bites that are happening and where they're happening and how it's happening. If you aren't going to the meetings, you're going to miss out on that. And if you're wanting to catch muskie, even if you're a guy that goes out once a month, you won't find any better information as to the now than that, unless you know a guy that's fishing 3 or 4 or 5 days a week and can tell you that stuff.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Nick, you have anything to contribute there?
Yeah, I'd just say unfortunately where I live, I'm a little far from the meeting, so I don't get to get to many. The lure swap last year was my first one actually getting to in person, but just an awesome group of people. That was like thoroughly enjoyable for me. everyone I met there, you just chit chat, exchange, stories about what you did well on, and, get a chance to try some new lures. I think I had like 6 baits that I got at the swap meet that all caught fish for me this spring. And it was just great. They tried new baits that I never would have even got my hands on. Some older Leo models. I got a Leo like Fat Boy or something like that. It was probably 4-inch, just real thick. Got a couple of Pymatuming on that. It was great. All sorts of cool stuff.
Yeah, and that's, and the other thing for me that was cool about it is you get your membership. There's a couple other perks. I mean, you get the calendar, which I have hanging right here beside me. You get the magazine too. Like that, I actually read this. I look through it, and it's pretty cool. I mean, it's cool to be a part of that stuff and see what's going around, not just in our local area, but throughout the country. But we got the minnow fund too. So, there's ways that the club gives back to the fishery. And I just think that in itself, with all of these other things you guys mentioned, that's a really cool thing about this group of people in a club like Chapter 16 or an organization like Muskies Inc. So that's why I wanted to bring it up. I appreciate you guys talking about that, because it does, again, I wish I could make more meetings and be more involved, because that giving back to what the club's been giving to me is pretty awesome. So that's what I'd like to do. So yeah, I mean, that's cool stuff. And so I think where I want to go with this now is I want to get in and I want to talk about some musky lures. This is the time of year where if you're not fishing as much as you would, in spring, summer, and fall, this is kind of the time of year where we start looking at baits, start grabbing lures up from pretty much just about everywhere. I walked into one of the guys I work with, walked into his office today, and he was in the process of buying baits from Team Rhino Outdoors. So I think this is just, you guys would probably agree with that. Like, this is the time to start picking up lures. And this is the time where I really like kind of reorganizing and seeing what I want to invest in, I guess, for, this upcoming season. So Wileys have been this interesting thing for me. It's almost like Dale is kind of this local legend that just puts out these magical musky lures that just seem to catch fish on all different bodies of water. So, I guess my first question for you guys, and we'll just go around, it doesn't have to be a real long answer, but, as far as running Wileys, why, or how did you guys kind of get into running Wileys, and what makes this particular lure lineup from Dale Wiley, so special, if that's fair?
I guess I can start off. Oh, go ahead, Joel.
All right, I'll jump in. I don't really remember how I came on Wiley's. A few of the guys I fished with kind of when I started were big Wiley fans, but I had been using them a little bit before that, before I met these guys. I don't really know if it was just, what I heard. I think probably the first Muskie show I ever went to was in like 2008. Would have been at the Butler High School when they had it there. And I remember seeing them, and I already had a couple. I picked up a couple more, and that's just kind of where it started for me. I guess I'll go over my favorite. These aren't so much my favorite patterns. I kind of just grab what I have. But actual models would be the 5.5 killer jointed, and a bait that I think is kind of underrated, the straight in the same model. You can see I modify them to be 2 hooks, just because I don't think you really need 3 hooks on them. They're such a small bait. It's easier to get them off unhooked. I think they run just as good or better. So that's a quick spiel on my favorite Wiley.
Do you move your front hook back a little bit, or is that right where?
Yeah. Okay. This, the way I figured that out was Dale actually made some two hook Wileys. Like this one actually came 2 hooks from him.
Okay.
Okay, so it's got a
Little bigger.
In you.
a 3/0 wide gap Mustad. I forget the number, 3565 BRs. Okay, so it is moved back a little bit. And the only other difference is obviously there's no hook back here. There's a little bigger hook on the back and a split ring.
Okay.
And that's basically just how I've modified them. Same thing. I haven't noticed any difference in hookups. They're a little easier to get out of the fish's mouth. They don't rub with the big 3/0s on the belly. You don't get a whole lot of rub. Just another thing I like to them. You know, where typically you might get rub in here with that second. I mean, it's pretty common. You eliminate that. So that's just a little something I do.
Yeah.
So that is really cool because I never really think about those types of modifications that you can make to a bait like that. And I could see how that might be something that, you know, if I was to actually catch a fish, that would probably help me get it out of the net and back into the water a lot quicker. But Joel, I have to ask you, so you showed that straight model versus the jointed. And one of the questions I've always had was looking at those two, because I really like the 5.5s, that Muskie Killer. But what do you think is the biggest difference between the straight and the jointed? You know, is it just an action thing?
Well, definitely. I mean, the straights just don't have a ton of action. You know, they're more of a swim through the water type bait. You know, I can't really say that they produce better. Like you would think they'd be a better bait in the spring. But even once the water warms up, you know, if jointeds aren't working, before I'd switch out to another bait, I would go to a straight. You know, it just has a totally different action. They don't go very deep. I think they actually probably go maybe a touch shallower than the jointeds. But I mean, I've heard guys say they cast them too. They're a great casting bait. I don't know. They work. You know, like I said, when things are tough, they seem to produce better than you know, other baits.
Okay.
Yeah, I attest to that part. Like I know this year when it's been cold front conditions or you have changing conditions in an early spring day where it's like cloudy, sunny, cloudy, and you have pressure changes in that, the straights have definitely produced better on those days than the jointed. The jointed seem to be more of like if the fish are already kind of going, or if you're expecting the activity to peak at a certain time during those majors or minors, something like that, that's when it's going to happen.
Okay, yeah, that's really cool. And that's something that I think would be helpful too for guys that you know, don't necessarily have a lot of experience with these types of baits or just trying to get into the sport of musky fishing. You know, that right there is a big deal because, you know, you've got two of those, the same bait in two different styles. You know, that's something that running that straight, I probably missed out on, you know, a lot this past year. I've only got like maybe one or two of those. So that's a pretty cool tip in general. So Nick, do you want to go as far as, you know, when did you start running Wileys? What got you into Wileys? And, you know, you can get into, you know, what's your favorite style bait as well.
Okay. I actually kind of went in a roundabout way to get into both Wiley's and Muskies Inc. We started out, I live up near Edinburgh Lake, and that's the main lake I fish. And just kind of started off fishing with whatever you get at big box stores, and, you know, not a lot of success there. And then I actually got stumbled across Andy Zomchek's Fat AZ podcast. I started listening to that, kind of gleaning a lot of information out of there, and worked a lot down around Cranberry area. And I heard one podcast they were talking about Wiley's and that they sell them at O'Donnell's Sports Supplies right off 422 there. And I was working down there. It was the day before I was leaving for a trip to Canada, and I popped in and they had one Fat.Body left and a few 8-inch kings, and I got those 3 lures. And I don't think the Fat.Body was in the water for 5 minutes up in Canada, and we had a fish on. Just there's been something about every bait I've bought from O'Donnell's has been like a lucky one. That's what I was telling you guys earlier. I got like this same pattern there, and we caught a nice open water spotted fish short lining at night. It was just wild. So if that was the beginning of the end on the Wiley addiction, and now I've got almost all the ones I can come across.
The addiction is real.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie, when did you get into Wiley's, and what's your favorite style?
So it's kind of funny. Even when I used to fish bass, one of the guys that I fished with in a club, when he fished muskie pretty diehard for about 3 years. He was like, you need 2 baits. He's like, you need a Suic and you need Wiley's if you're fishing PA, period. He's like, if you're casting the rivers. Granted, he was fishing up the shallower section of the Allegheny from Oil City up, where it's not super deep, so Suics are incredibly effective. But when he was like, you need Wiley's and you need to troll, this was coming from a guy me, that never trolled before. Only casted bass, casted walleye, casted cat, never trolled at any point in my life. And then I joined the club, trolled for the first time I went trolling was the veterans outing in 2019. And 5 minutes into the event, side rod goes off. It was a Wiley King Jr. in the is it dark? It's like that dark green frog with the white face.
Okay.
Rod just went screaming, and I was like, "Oh, we're snagged." I had 40-foot back, and I'm like, "Oh, we're snagged." And then I picked it up. And I'm like, "Holy crap!" I'm like, "Get out of your seat!" And I passed the rod off to the dude, and it was funny because that was the biggest fish that day caught, and it was like, "Holy crap!" And then it was just from there, it just started off, and luckily in 2019, I went to the show I think that one was it was the last one up in Robinson area. It was up there by the Parkway. Was it the Marriott up there, Joel?
It's at the embassy.
Yeah, that.
You're talking about the one it was in Cranberry.
It was shy of Cranberry. It was off of 376 there.
Is that the south? Was that out in Moon Township?
By the old airport. Yeah.
Yeah, that was the embassy.
That was 2019, wasn't it?
No, I think that would have been 2018.
It was 18. I think
it was 18.
Because 19 was the first year I went to the Muskie Max, and it was at the location it's at now.
Okay, so 2018 was the first year I started really fishing for him then, and that was when this was one of the first baits I magically picked up by random. And when the water is below 65 degrees and above 50, this bait is out. I've had to replace this back hook 4 times because fish just break it. It just gets hit. Like, unless I know big fish are starting to go, I don't even put this one out because it's already logged 28 fish. And I don't want it to keep beating it. I don't want it to become just wood before I have anything to do with it. So right from the start, first trolling fish, and then biggest fish for that year was on a Wiley, and then it just escalated from there, and now I'm out of control.
That seems to be the theme, eventually out of control. So I mean, as far as mine, I think, it was one of those things where being at Muskie Max and kind of not really fully understanding how I wanted to fish, what I was even doing a couple years ago. I think really what kind of brought me around to Wiley's was more or less, talking to guys at the club and really kind of me wanting to get into this like local PA bait maker, I guess, spread. And I think since probably 2, 3 years ago, I've been really trying to get more like locally made baits to PA. And it just made sense. Again, I look at these things like these just legendary lures. And it's funny because I think sometimes as musky fishermen, at least what I'm seeing from other people and what I'm, I guess, starting to feel, you know, the average fisherman that goes out and uses live bait for bass or bluegill or crappies or whatever, they look at some of these lures like we're from another planet. You see, you look at even the kings, like the size of this freaks people out. And the fact of the matter is, when I looked at this 6 years ago, and I was like, oh my God, I got to use that on the water to catch one of these fish. Like, this, to me, I guess now it isn't even that big of a fishing lure, compared to what I was seeing last year. And so, I mean, it was that. I think it's partially just wanting to be almost kind of like feeling like I want a piece of history, buying some of these lures and catching fish on them. My favorite profile out of the Wiley, I guess, series, it's definitely the Fat.Body in this color. I don't know. I feel like you guys probably have.
Goldie.
Yeah, Goldie. I love this. I don't know why I love Goldie so much. It's just, I feel like this is a confidence color for me. I love this profile and this style of bait because I feel like it's not super big. It's not super small. I feel like you can run it. I mean, and you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but that's one of his that's the deep runner in his series. So like I can get that up and down the column a little bit better, I guess up to 14 feet. It feels right to me. I feel like I'm musky fishing. I like, what is that? Strawberry? What is that?
That is a fat 9. It's a fat 9-inch. He makes like several 9-inch. There's a 9-inch straight that is a square lip, and you can see the thickness difference there.
Oh.
That the fat 9 is also one that the reason I held it up is because it will get down to the same depths as the Fat.Body, the 7.25 or whatever you call the Fat.Body. It'll get down to that 14, 15 feet if you troll at the same speeds and right speeds. Missing hooks. You gotta cut hooks sometimes.
See that.
When they catch fish.
All right. So, I mean, so we kind of gone, Nick, what was your favorite profile again? I might've missed that one.
The Fat.Body for sure.
Okay. That was a Fat.Body too.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me ask you guys this, Dale, and I think that, so this was a recent episode on AZ too, on the AZ podcast about Dale's paint jobs and these colors. I don't know that I want to get into the weeds in this as far as colors concerned. I think what I'm feeling like though is there's always this argument that I have with people, or that ends up coming up, and it's, does color really matter? I'm of the opinion after what I saw last year, absolutely, yes, 100%. How do you guys feel about color? I mean, obviously, if color wasn't a thing, we wouldn't have all these patterns, right? It would just be white or black.
I'd save a hell of a lot of money if color didn't matter.
I think there's
a hell of a lot of money.
There's days it doesn't matter, but then there's other days where it makes a big difference.
Joel, what's your take on the color thing?
I'm kind of the same way. I kind of look at as far as the color. It probably, what plays into part the most is, I think, your light penetration and your actual color of the water, that you're fishing. Because places change over the course of the year. They might go from clear to dark, And then in the fall, a lot of times they go back to clear. So I think that's what makes the difference. There's definitely days, like Nick said, it doesn't matter. And another thing I'd say is confidence. If you have confidence in it, you're going to keep that bait out there. So it's going to end up catching more fish, And once you get a color that you're confident in, that's part of why it works so good, I think.
On the topic of color, I got proven there was one day that stands out. I was running that same color that Nick said his favorite fat body's in a straight 5.5-inch killer. And when the clouds would be over the sun, this bait got ripped out. If a fish hit, this was whatever rod this was on I was going for. When the sun would come out from behind the clouds, and it was early spring, it's like yellow lightning. I can't tell if you can see that. It's like silver sides, yellow belly, yellow top, yellow base, silver head. As soon as the sun would come out, one of these two would go. Otherwise, sun went behind. It was just didn't matter how fast. I went anywhere from 3.5 to 6 even, and it didn't matter. It was just based on where that sun was on the clouds. If that sun was behind the clouds, these two lures didn't get hit for crap. And I then changed this one out for a Leo in black perch, and then it got hit. And it's like, when it was so consistent like that, you have a day like that, it opens your eyes a little bit.
So with that said, then Charlie, what's your favorite Wiley pattern then? And I realize this is like a loaded question because it could be.
So I have two. I personally have two. One is, and it goes kind of the AZ podcast, the Mud Puppy. It doesn't show up well in that one. I can show it in the head shaker better. Because the one thing that Dale does different than most places in a Mud Puppy, exactly, that AZ does is it's all about that silver scale and the white head. If you keep this head color the same, or gold head color, brown, it doesn't seem to get hit the same amount. I don't care what bait you put it on. It's not the same. It needs that white head and silver scaling and not copper or not gold scaling. Again,
it's impressive how well that white head shows up too. When
it's a contrast, I think it is. I think it's that rolls in the water, they see that white, and then they see a quick flash, and then it darkens up. And that's kind of like a fish turning away almost in my head. I don't know. I overthink stuff, so who knows? I could be wrong. But if you give me if you tell me I'm fishing water under, say, 63 degrees, that is by far my favorite lure of all time. If it's above 45 and under 60, and I know decent fish are going, this puppy's going out. It just flat out gets hit. And by chunky, heavy, fat fish, the ones we all want to catch. It's not catching 27s. My buddy that I fish with, we have a 5.5-inch Wiley in chartreuse sucker that we called it the 27-inch killer. The biggest fish it caught was like 31 inches, but it might have caught 14 fish this past year, which is great for a lot of people, but I'm not into catching 27 inchers.
That's what my buddy and I had. Well, it's his bait actually, but it's the 5-inch deep diver, the Fat.Body 5-inch.
Never caught one.
Really? See, he has this one. It's the magic wood in a fluorescent perch, and I don't think a fish under 40 ever touched it. Everything that's hit it has been big.
So That is interesting to me, but I'm gonna
Right.
I want to come back to that one. Joel, what's your favorite Wiley pattern?
Nick,
Oh wow.
that one.
And
Yep,
to be
that's
honest
it.
with you, the first Wiley I ever owned was in this pattern. I've retired it now, but it's still my favorite pattern. Now I can say it hasn't been as good the past couple years, but it still works. And Fire Tiger is probably one of my favorite colors in any lure, so I just have a lot of confidence in it.
What is
Yeah,
it
that works
about
in
fire?
clear water or clouded water. Like it's real good. When that color's on, it's on.
And that,
Yeah, I've definitely turned some people over the year. You know, I used to fish with Paul Feck a lot, and Paul would always laugh. You know, that color Fire Tiger, just he'd fished for years. That was never a color for him. And then when I started fishing with him, that's what I was using, and he saw it work, and became a favorite pattern for him too. So, just
The
one of those.
one thing I've learned like that is Dale's paints are. There might be one thing that's a little different than the typical pattern like that, and for some darn reason, that thing just gets destroyed. Like you said, like that mud puppy with the silver scale and the white head. I know TRO paints it with gold bars and it's a brown head. It ain't the same. That bait just does not get hit the same.
so that I guess that's what is special about Fire Tiger because it literally just works. That color just has been working for years and years and years.
But Dale's Fire Tiger is different. It's all that. It's orange belly, the same chartreuse with the black bars. There's a lot of Fire Tigers that are that yellow chartreuse and then green. And some of them aren't the same. Like they just don't get whacked the same.
So that is interesting. Nick, yeah, we talked to you about, I asked you what your favorite color was, right? No, I need to come back to you on that. What's your favorite color? Nick, what's your favorite Wiley color pattern?
It's that I think it's the blacktail perch. This is a 11-inch king in that same pattern. Orange belly.
Muskie?
Yep.
Oh.
Big boy.
Wow. So that is another thing, what as far as Wileys go, and again, me being green here, in front of me, I've got 5.5 jointed. That might be my second favorite color, dog balls. I've got the Fat.Bodies, I've got the head shakers, I've got the Kings, and I've got a couple of the King Juniors. But that's the extent of my Wiley collection. Dale has made all of these other lures. So I guess one of my other questions for you guys is what is that? Okay, so there's all these exotic Wileys out there that I can't even imagine because I haven't seen them. So do you guys have any exotic Wileys that you want to show off and maybe give us a little story? Joel, you would probably have some good info on this as far as like, the Kowalski, for example. I know, about a little bit of information about when Dale was making those, but what can you guys give me in the way of exotic Wileys?
I mean, I did lay a Kowalski out here. I wouldn't say I have a whole lot of exotics. Something would be like Charlie had the 9-inch Fat.Body with a round lip. Now I do have a Fat.Body 9-inch. It's actually a reverse Fire Tiger, but it's got a big square lip and it runs completely different. I didn't grab it tonight. Then as far as oddities, like the big Kowalski, I believe he still does make these for some guys. There's some guys in Canada that still run them quite a bit.
He had a few at the show last year as well.
Yeah. I think that I don't think he has a big market for them, but guys still buy them. If he could make them, I'm sure he'd sell them no problem. But other than that, I don't really have anything too exotic. I have one jerk bait. I've had a number over the years, just never used them, and ended up selling them. Guys wanted them. Really, that's it. I mean, between, like I said, the 5.5 and the King Juniors, straights and jointeds, that's most of what I'm using. So that's pretty much what I have.
Okay. All right, Nick, you have any Wiley Exotics?
The most exotic thing I probably have are these a couple of the jerk baits that Joel mentioned. They're I really like casting them. They're pretty they're weighted in the front, and they kind of naturally ride nose down, and you just tap them around and almost neutrally buoyant, so they stay down pretty well. Pretty easy to work. There's I think a 7-inch he calls that, and then a 9-inch.
Nice.
A couple of those. I don't think he makes those anymore. I think he said he doesn't like using the lead.
Mm-hmm.
It's
an extra couple
hard to
steps.
come by.
Now, if there are guys looking for them, though, I still see them pop up on eBay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say on a fairly regular basis, but they're still floating around.
That's what I think. Most of the ones I have come from like Muskie Flea Market and stuff like that. They're out there. There's a number of them.
I had no idea Dale even made a jerkbait. That's pretty cool seeing that thing.
And they fish nice. I enjoy the action of them. They're a little different.
Yeah. All right, Charlie, you have any Wiley Exotics?
Well, one is this one of the guys that Dale's known forever in musky fishing, Jim Burr, turned me on to these. He uses these mostly in springtime and early summer. It's called a Wiley Scout. I mean, it's at best the body's 2 2.25 inches long. I mean, right there's a 5.5-inch killer above it, and it's not even the front part of the joint. I know Jim runs them. Jim catches fish on them. I got one. I can't say I'm going to run it. It's hanging down there with the early days of cutout Wiley stickers. Like there's Wiley stickers that are hand cut, so they're kind of long, real thin looking, hook hangers on them as opposed to screw eyes or anything like that. Honestly, my favorite to run and some of my biggest Wiley fish, head shakers. Consistently for size of fish, head shakers. If I'm looking for numbers or whatever's below to hit, I'll run a killer. I'll run a jointed, straight, whatever. But if I want a big one, head shakers going out. Like this one specifically, I think it's like one of his black perch variants. It has a 41-inch average, which might not seem like a lot to guys that are in Canada or Minnesota or anything like that, but here in PA, 41-inch average is a pretty damn good bait.
Yeah, so that's actually takes me kind of to another. So I don't know that really numbers. I know in this group of people, aside from myself, I'm gonna exclude myself from this one. There was a lot of fish from the three of you that were caught last year.
You're damn lucky when you're in the boat. So.
I had a couple good days. I was guilty by association a few times on Charlie's boat. But I just think it's kind of cool to think about, I guess when I first started musky fishing, not seeing fish for the first probably 2 or 3 years. And then kind of, I would say more or less lucking into a fish here and there. It just it always amazed me to see all these pictures online and, people talking about Wileys, and I'm seeing all these like net shots. So just in general, like, I guess as far as fishing these baits go, when would you guys fish a Wiley typically? We're talking maybe like, is there a specific time of year you would run it? Are you running them all year? What's the scenario for you guys? Joel, can you give me any insight into that?
Well, I mean, I would say as far as running the Wileys with as many models as he makes, you can basically run them spring, summer, fall, winter if you want to. Obviously, you kind of follow the scenario where you start out with the small ones and then you're going to work up to bigger ones. But I mean, that's not a hard, fast rule. I've known guys that run the big ones in the spring, short line them and catch fish. But definitely that summertime through early fall, through end of September. Once again, I like these style baits, the 5-6 inchers. I typically fish pretty shallow, so they're a great bait for that because, they don't get deep. You can run them back a little bit further. They run good on boards. But like I said, with all the models he makes, I mean, they can work anywhere and they can work all year, as long as you control. I'm not a big Fat.Body guy. Caught some fish on them, very few, but I also don't use them much.
Okay.
Now, guys I fish with have had exceptional luck on them, and for whatever reason, they haven't been hot for me. But he's got a bait that covers pretty much every situation, so all year.
Okay, Nick, are you running Wileys in your spread?
Oh yeah, I run them pretty much. I would say like mid-March or mid-May on. I've probably got a Fat.Body on a down rod, and then occasionally I'll run one on an out rod just to change it up if I've got a lot of deep divers out there. If I'm really covering some vertical ground there. I had a lot of luck on his catfish pattern this year. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that one. Real nice, dark and gold.
Yeah, I got a few on that this year.
Yeah, I really like that color pattern. A lot of golds in it, and still pretty dark, kind of like a gold perch, or black perch, but yeah, early season I like the 4 or the 5.5s. Little shallower running if you're running over, the flooded stumps and stuff like that around here.
I need to quit showing those white lightnings or those yellow lightnings. That's all I gotta say is you've hung it up. I've hung it up. I'm like,
you don't like these?
I love that bait. I got more of that than I want to admit, but that's the problem.
That's the replacement for one that's it doesn't have any paint left on
it. There's only 2 of them out of treble. This bait, it was 50 yards into its first part of the real spot on the spot, as people call it, after what was that? That was, I guess, we really had the 2020 Muskie Max, right? Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So I bought this bait Dale in this color, not knowing anything. Put this damn thing out on a board down the river, which doesn't have the most quantity of fish in it.
In a van down by the river.
Into the spot, it gets destroyed. And I'm like, look at that. I bought it last Sunday, and Saturday it goes on the water and it gets nailed.
That's always a good feeling when you spend money on a bait and it produces right out of the get-go.
Yeah, and it's one of those ones that that was March, so March early March, 36-degree water. We were running this 15-foot back off a board, 5.6 miles an hour down the river. Hey.
So, I mean, we've talked a lot about, just generically speaking, some of our favorite lures. I think for the people that are getting into musky fishing and seeing, I think there's a certain element to getting into the sport of musky fishing that's a little bit, I don't know if I would say cumbersome, maybe a little bit confusing might be a term, with the amount of lures and products that are out there. I experienced a lot of that when I first started. I still experience it now. I think I'm starting to find a sweet spot, particularly with these baits. I guess one of the questions I would have for you guys, since we have varying degrees of experience, what would be your tip to new musky anglers? What would be one thing that you would give to a new angler as a hot tip or something to get them started? Charlie, you want to start?
If you're fishing a Wiley, fish it fast. If you put a Wiley on, no reason to go under 4 miles an hour. I don't care if that water temp is 40 degrees, 33 degrees. Go 6, go 5. I mean, maybe our rivers are different. Maybe I'm just wrong or too naive or too new to understand it all. And if you're just getting into it and you want a bait that's going to catch anything, pick up a killer, a 5.5 inch, all damn year, springtime, summertime, fall time. They'll eat that 5.5. Things not going below 6 feet. You're at 6 feet with 40 feet of line out. You're at 6 feet with 80 feet of line out. Gets away from the boat. Helps for those secondary fish. I know springtime when we run shallow, we run a lot of stern planers. That's a new word, not just a regular planer board, a stern planer.
Charlie drags a road cone around behind him.
Yes, we've dragged water bottles behind us, not just a road cone or a soccer cone at times. You see that orange thing go down, and you're like, there's a fish on before that clear rock goes off. And it makes a difference. There's a reason those walleye guys use it. And that early spring, late winter, the muskies are a lot of times related to the same areas the walleyes are for a very good reason.
So Nick, I'll go to you next.
I forgot the exact question.
I forgot the question too.
A new musky angler.
Yeah.
Talk to people. That's the biggest thing. If you even think a guy might be fishing for muskie, talk to everybody you run into on the water. You know what I mean? People run across muskies here and there, and you can get a little bit of information from everybody.
Join Muskies Inc. They'll help you the best.
Yep, Muskies Inc.'s the best place. But you can learn from everybody. You know what I mean? If there's a reason why all the panfish guys are in one area, it's probably a good area for, trolling by too. So you can learn from everybody. The shows are the best deal. Like talking with Dale at a show is just great. If you tell him where you're thinking of fishing, he's probably fished there, whether it's here or Wisconsin, and he'll tell you what he likes and what works there, or anybody else you run into. I've found almost everyone you run into in the muskie community is great to talk to, willing to help you learn. So that's huge.
All right, cool. So Joel, any advice for new musky anglers?
Yeah, I might be able to go a little farther on this. I kind of look at it as, like you said, Ryan, you have a hard time judging like what lure to buy or what to pick or something like that. The amount of lure makers out there now is easily probably triple, if not more. I mean, maybe more than from when I started. You know, whether you look at casting baits, trolling baits, anything. It seems like every other guy is a lure maker. You know, he makes lures. And then you have different models, you have different colors, different sizes. I would say, you know, just keep it simple. You know, start out with proven lures, you know, not something that's new that looks great, you know, because sometimes these new lures come out and they're hyped pretty big and they end up not being a whole lot, you know. Look at the lures that have been around for many years. There's a reason, you know, because they're consistent producers. And like I said, you know, if it's somebody from around this area, we're so lucky to have so many lure makers in the tri-state area. I mean, it's especially as far as trolling baits. But there's more and more guys making casting baits now too, you know. Like I said, these baits work around here. You know, that's where I would start. You know, don't buy a ton of different colors. Get a few colors, something bright, something dark. Invest more money into, you know, good gear, good line, hook cutters, nets, stuff like that. Because that's your real backbone there. So just try to keep it simple. Don't think you got to spend buku thousands of dollars on lures just to be able to go out and catch a fish. You know, I guess that's the way I'd keep it.
That's probably the best advice I've heard.
Yeah,
I started,
really onto that,
I mean,
so there's a reason, like, guys in PA make the baits they do. So the PA baits, trolling wise, the PA baits and the Ohio baits are pretty similar. The Ohio baits will run a little bit deeper overall at times because they deal with waters that actually reach a thermocline and they're fishing down to that thermocline. If you're in Wisconsin, find somebody close that makes baits up there because they're making baits for those waters. They're making baits, they fish there. New York, they're making baits, they fish there. Ontario, they're making baits that catch fish there. Like, guys got to understand that. And the unique thing, like Nick said about Dale makes a damn bait that you can catch a fish in Ontario. You'll catch a fish in PA, New York, Ohio, Wisconsin, Indiana, Minnesota, everywhere where there's a damn muskie that swims and kicks its tail and opens its mouth to eat a fish, it's going to eat a Wiley of some kind, period.
Yeah. I watched a video just the other day. It was a guy up in Ontario, you know, targeting big fish. You know, he holds up a couple baits, and one's a Wiley Fat.Body, and the other one was a Legend perch bait. So both
has a catfish pattern Wiley King that they catch a 53 on, and they're in that Georgian Bay Nipissing area. I mean, these things just flat out catch fish.
Yeah.
Because Dale's been there, done that, and tried it. You can't say that all these baits are going to catch fish everywhere. You might buy a bait and it's going to catch fish for a month and a half out of the year in that area you live in. Then you got to change. That's just the nature of the beast. That's just the seasons of fishing. I know I'm not going to sit here and eat spaghetti with meat sauce every day for 3 months and be happy. I'm not. I'm going to revolt. I'm going to go on a diet. I'm going to be like, screw this. I'm not eating tonight. I'm just going to drink beer because it's more fun. So
Charlie's peaceful protest.
Joel said no arguing with that. I mean, first of all, let me
Joel takes a drink. That's exactly what I'm talking about. Everybody understands.
I could eat spaghetti and meat sauce every night of the week. I don't, and if I was a muskie, I would be probably the fattest, dumbest fish and eat every single
chocolate peanut butter pie. If you give me chocolate peanut butter pie, I will be 450 pounds.
Yeah. Joel, you were wrapping up there at the end. Did you have anything else you wanted to add on that?
Not really.
Okay.
No,
So
I mean,
go ahead.
I can remember, like, starting out and looking back, the biggest thing I did was buy too many baits.
Oh yeah.
Too much stuff that, I don't want to say In Fisherman and all these other magazines, Muskie Hunter, those are great magazines to read, but a lot of that stuff sometimes doesn't pertain to our area so much. Now that, Greg and Tony have started took the magazine over, there is more information on our area, to break it down for lures and how to fish and all that. But years ago, that wasn't the case. They were dealing with bigger waters, natural lakes, stuff we didn't really have in this area. So, I would say the biggest thing if somebody's getting started is to find somebody like a mentor, somebody to help them along, get you started out. They're going to point you in the right direction. They've been doing it probably, or at least been doing it longer than you have. So point you in the right direction. And I think that's probably one of the biggest things that's changed over the years is people are more willing to help, because the fishing has got better. Well, there's still going to be secrets, things you don't want to let out. I just think there's more people willing to help. So find somebody like that and don't spend too much money. And you'll start out ahead of the game right there. So.
All right. So
they'll tell you where to directly spend your money to catch more fish,
as
opposed to just spend it willy-nilly.
That right there is like, I would say critical, because that's where I struggled. And like I had a mentor, Dan, when I first started fishing muskies, Dan was there to help me, and Dan's got a lot of good info. He's been running Wileys and all this other stuff. I think the problem that I had was I wasn't necessarily, how there's a difference between listening and hearing. Well, that was my problem. I was listening, but I wasn't hearing. And, I think I needed to take some lumps over a couple of years to try to figure some of this out. I'm still not anywhere near where I want to be, but, it's one of those things where you keep learning. I think that is also the really fun thing about muskie fishing is when you think you have something figured out, you really don't. I don't know. Is that fair? Do you guys feel the same way about that?
You figured it out that day.
Yeah.
That day.
Different tomorrow.
Yep. Yeah,
it's like that day we were on a pattern. We were on a pattern for 2 weeks, and then you and Dan were out, and it was a rainy, crummy day, and you guys did way better than we did. Our pattern just didn't hold up, and it was a problem. I think we caught one fish, hooked up to 3, and you guys caught 3 and hooked up to 5, I think it was, with one solid one in there.
Yeah, it was, and that's the thing. I think that was probably the biggest takeaway from last year for me is really you just got to keep fishing, and there's never really like a figured out answer. You just got to keep trying and running different baits. But one thing that actually I got somebody to ask me ahead of time. I told a few guys that we were gonna try to do this video, and one of the questions that was asked by somebody that doesn't really have Wileys, they're looking to start to get into using Wileys to fish. Now this person casts. So the thing, at least from my perspective with Wileys, this is a trolling game. You're trolling these baits. My question to you guys is there a casting application when you talk about Wileys? And if so, what lures would you guys cast? Charlie, you've got an answer ready to go.
5.5-inch killer straights, 5.5-inch killers, 6 1/4, 6.5-inch King Juniors. The big 9-inch kings, cast the straight baits. They go down, they wobble, you'll get a little kick out. And my advice, if you're casting them, put a heavier hook on the back. Like,
Okay.
One of my personal favorite hooks is I can't remember the number. It's a VMC O'Shaughnessy 4 or 5 watt 4X hook. Super heavy. They're what DK uses on his baits. It causes a little more. What happens is the head will kick faster, and the tail is like slow behind, so it causes more belly roll on it. Again, does it make a difference? I don't know. I personally don't know. I've had success doing it. Can't tell you that it makes a difference, but that's what I do on most of the ones that I'm going to cast. I'm not really going to cast a jointed.
Okay.
Everywhere.
All right. Nick.
I'd agree with Charlie. The straight baits are nice. You can almost work them like a twitch bait at that point with the straight. And the only other thing is, like, if you wanted to be like almost like a top water presentation, you could do a jointed real slow on the surface if you're, almost like, as if you would a top water, something like that. But other than that, I'd say stick with, weed edges and, work the straight ones like twitch baits pretty much.
Not the Fat.Bodies on that either.
No. All right, Joel.
Same thing. The
Straight.
straights, definitely the 5.5 killer juniors. Now I will say, like Nick said, twitch baits, the straights, you can definitely rip them, and you can rip them hard, rip them through weed, keep the rod tip up. But I would say to cast the jointed, throw them out there and basically reel them as fast as you can. That can be a good thing too, especially over top of weeds or shallow water. They have a lot of action, and we know they'll take the speed, so that could be something to do. Or in colder water, reel them real slow. Get them down as much as you can, and then they just have that lazy action through the water. That being said, I don't cast them a lot, but when I started out, they were one of the few baits I did have, so I did cast them a little bit. They'll catch fish.
All right, that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's something I never really thought of doing. One of the things that I will say is I think I talked to somebody, this was a while back. I read an article about just lures in general. And one of the things that came up was when you're fishing an outflow, like, you can't be afraid to put your bait in harm's way. Now, I can say that I probably wouldn't fish a Wiley at an outflow, but I never really thought about casting in general, as far as these baits go. I think I've casted the 5.5s maybe a handful of times. But that was one thing that I think will help people kind of understand, this is more of a trolling type bait, his series, but there are casting applications, and that straight seems to be that is the golden child if you're talking about casting these baits.
Charlie, you were away, but here's the box of goodies from Dale's.
You were at Dale. Oh my God. How much did you spend?
I calculated that sucker out. I counted each one.
$1,200.
All right. So another question here. What is the best day you guys have had on Wiley Lures? Joel, why don't you kick us off on this one?
Well, it's going to have to be like a St. Clair experience for me, where I think, we've caught 10 or 12 fish have been on Wileys, just the Wileys alone. We've had some good days on them in PA and stuff, but that by far would have to be the better day that I can remember.
So that right there. I want to talk about that for just 1 minute though, because Dan and I went out to Lake St. Clair. It was like this big thing for me. I was like, oh man, we're going to Lake St. Clair. This is going to be awesome. We're going to catch 100 muskies, and it's going to be great over 2 days. And we struggled hard, and we had a nasty cold front. I mean, I could make every excuse to you. Bottom line is we had no idea what we were doing. So like where we were at probably the wrong end of the lake at that time of year, but like we're looking at the water depth there didn't seem like it was going to be really more than like 10 feet in the area that we were at. So it seems like the Wiley, at least the 5.5s, really all of these lures, that would be like really just a perfect lineup for St. Clair.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I think when Dale started making lures, his big seller was selling baits to guys out at St. Clair. I mean, they were just producers, and I'm not saying that they weren't caught on around here, but you're talking late 80s through the 90s and stuff. There wasn't as many people fishing, but they became very popular out there. And I think that's a reason you see a lot of very similar baits or copy, kind of copycat style baits that came from that area, because that was a big producer out there.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and that's probably one other thing to touch on, but let's get through this. So, Nick, what is your best day on Wiley's?
I'd still say I've caught more numbers, but the highlight of my Wiley fishing career was up in Canada. We were fishing at night, mayfly hatch, and I had I think 3 feet of line out in like 6 feet of water, and we caught a 43-inch spotted fish right on the open water Georgian Bay. My buddy was with me and my girlfriend, who's just leaning in right now.
Nice. Hi, Larissa.
But that was by far the best, most memorable.
Saw your video. It's pretty nice.
We were watching Fishing PA with Ryan Reed last night.
The husky.
Did she reel in the Georgian Bay fish?
No, my buddy Andrew did.
You selfish.
Wait.
With me and Andrew.
They are. They make me take.
What I mean, like,
they're real jerks. No, they.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not on my rod, and then no, they're absolutely awful. They're absolutely awful about it.
The wives or girlfriends, come on, you gotta let them get every fish that goes off.
No, they're awful. They're absolutely awful.
Wow.
He was like drunk. He almost fell into the net. He was soaked. He was like totally slimed. And then they're like, oh, take a picture. I was like, you guys are serious? This is
will the real Nick Feisler please stand up? Wow.
That was the most memorable.
I wish Andrew fell in the lake.
Oh,
wow. You can't even let your girlfriend catch a fish. Wow.
She still caught the biggest one of the whole year out of us. So, yeah.
I don't think I did.
In the spring.
payback is karma.
Yes.
Right? We were still just trying to catch up.
Wow.
You guys.
Wow.
See what I have to put up with.
Yeah.
Hey, mine caught it wasn't a giant, it was like a mid-30s, but it was on a day. That was the only hit I had that day. And I mean, it was springtime at Pyme, and it was not what I was expecting, but it was tough because the 3 north boat launches were all full, and it was like, holy crap, where do I even go?
Wow.
I mean, I can say one thing I can add. My biggest PA fish, heaviest, was actually caught on a Wiley back in 2010. I was 49 inches, and it was over a 27-inch girth, at its fast. Unfortunately, we didn't get to weigh it. Even at that time, I had a 60-pound scale in my boat, but I was not in my boat. So, we didn't get a weight on it. But by far, the heaviest fish I've ever seen, thickest. 5.5-inch Wiley Fire Tiger. So
Wow.
Straight or jointed?
jointed.
Wow.
So killer. Lisa, that's what's unique about Dale's Fire Tiger. It's different. It's just that straight chartreuse. He doesn't taper it. He doesn't make it more yellow from the belly up to the sides, the green. It's just that straight same color, and it just flashes.
Yeah, that actually, I might need to invest in more Fire Tigers.
No,
That's
no, you don't. No.
Yeah, Joel, I think you talked me into buying a couple more Fire Tigers, maybe in every other. I think I got one in the 5.5, but all right, real quick, Charlie, what's your best day with Wiley's?
Right there.
Oh, fluorescent bluegill.
It's a flow bluegill that doesn't look like it's been hit at all, which is odd for a Wiley considering they have one layer of epoxy. But that thing has caught 22 fish this last year. There was one day specifically where it hooked. We landed 9 fish total out of 11 hits, and it caught 7 of the 9 fish.
Yeah, I mean, I would.
It was insane. Like, there was one time where my buddy caught a fish on it. I put it back. It was the side rod. I'm literally setting the down rod after it being in the water for 5 seconds, and it goes off again. And I'm yelling at him to get off of the wheel and grab the rod because I have a down rod in my hand that I'm setting out line.
That's the type of thing like I kind of wish would happen to me more. I will say that I had one experience, and that was the day that Charlie, you mentioned earlier with the Wileys. I had literally just purchased dog balls, and this was probably my favorite. This is gonna be my favorite Wiley moment. I was pining after this color for some reason. I wanted this color. I heard all the stories. People talk about dog balls, this legendary
We'll
Canadian.
call it the Burr.
What's that?
That's the Jim Burr color.
The Jim Burr color. I picked this up, and I think it got delivered like on a Thursday or Friday. Went out fishing. I think it was a Saturday, and caught a fish on it. That was probably my favorite Wiley moment. I don't have the numbers you guys have because I suck at muskie fishing. But, bottom line is like there was a time that same day I put out this Fat.Body, the Goldie pattern, and it got hit like probably within a minute and a half, not even a minute and a half. I had literally just put it out at, I think it was at 12 feet, turned to grab the other rod, and the rod goes off. So, this is all part of it for me, still learning this stuff and understanding where to run stuff in the column. But I think ultimately Dale's lineup, it covers so many different scenarios. He's got a bait for every scenario. And, his paint jobs, I feel like, I don't know, there's this term I would use, is probably beautifully simple. I look at some of these paint jobs, like that Mud Puppy is, to me, that's an amazing paint job. I love how it's just so clean. Everything he does is clean. Even this guy right here. I don't know. They're just, go ahead, Charlie.
Dark. It has flash, contrast. It has a brighter belly. Whereas with the scaling, with the roll of these, even if it doesn't have, if you don't want that orange belly, all of a sudden it rolls, and now the fish is looking at silver, just like that. Like the head is straight, and the fish is looking at a silver white belly.
There are so many complicated paint jobs on the market. A lot of sponge work, all this different layering, and just Dale is just he paints solid patterns. They're just clean and they're simple to me. I mean, looking at some of these, some of these patterns like this one, he's got that orange belly, a little bit of yellow in there. You've got some green, black top, and some scale work. But this is like, I look at this bait and, you know, me tinkering around painting baits, like I wish I could paint like this. And this is just a good, clean, basic pattern, but they catch fish time and time again. So I don't know. I love his lineup. I love everything he does. And it's just this, to me, it's just like this legendary, again, this thing that it's just like a piece of history. You buy one of these lures, you could almost hang these up on the wall and not fish them at all. But then
you have a collection downstairs.
Yeah. I mean,
the old ones are hanging down there on a rack, every fished, or the real odd ones.
So I got one more question for you guys, and this is kind of something that just popped up in my brain. So I fished with Todd Young last couple of years, and Todd has that just epic story of the dog bone. You know, he's got this Fat.Body and a brown perch pattern. It's not this. That's the interesting thing. The interesting thing is like Dale had like multiple brown perch patterns. Like Joel, I don't know if it's just a different color paint or what he was doing years back, but like I guess this is the new brown perch pattern.
Mm-hmm.
So that bait that Todd has, it's like in the old brown perch pattern, the dog bone. That thing is just, it's like this stoic legend on his boat. It hangs there, and it's all chewed up. It's got every type of cut, scrape, tooth mark in it. Do you guys have your own example of what you would consider the dog bone?
I have a same exact pattern as this one, the gold shiner half that's just beat up. It's got some teeth sticking in it. Probably be the closest I have, but it doesn't have nearly that many fish on it, maybe 20 or so on it.
Yeah.
That's the closest thing I could come up with.
I can't. I mean, I've definitely got some that are pretty chewed up. Do I have one like that? Probably not. Unfortunately, I think a lot of times once a lure gets pretty beat up, I don't want to say I retire it, but that's pretty much what I do. You know, even though it was working, I do have a few that one is a 5.5-inch fire tiger, one of the original ones I got. It had a pretty good chunk taken out of the head by a fish. And after that, I kind of retired it, but it served a pretty good mission. I mean, it did well for a number of years. So, yeah, I mean, I have a few here that are, you can see.
Oh, yeah.
A little beat up. I mean, they've caught some fish. But it seems like I said, once they get to a point, I just kind of retire them and move on. I don't know. Probably not the best idea, but I think there's more sentimental value in them than, you know, and I hate to take that chance of losing them.
Yeah.
Because it would probably kill me. So I get scared.
That's like the ultimate game room piece though, right? I mean, like those baits that are just beat up and chewed on, those are the ultimate game room pieces. So that's cool. I like that a lot. I hope someday my baits look enough like that for me to hang them on the wall. Charlie, you have anything that resembles dog bone?
Yeah, he's not far off of that. I have one that I picked up on. So I have two that I would consider along that lines. I have one that I picked up on eBay. It's a King Junior jointed, so it's at 6 1/4, 6.5-inch jointed, and it's in that white face frog, where it's the white face. Pull another bait of it. White face, dark sides, yellow and black spots, yellow belly. But it's a little, like I said, 6 1/4 jointed one. It looked like it's been run off the back of the boat driving down 79 from Erie.
Nice.
But it just flat out and it looks stupid in the water. Like the head goes like this, and the rear end goes like it's like four steps behind the head part. It's the dumbest looking bait in the water, but it just catches fish every stinking day out on a certain body of water. And like if I'm struggling, it goes out. I don't care if I put it out 12 foot back, 30 foot back, 50 foot back, 5 miles an hour, 2.5 miles an hour. It gets eaten. But my personal one, like I said, is this thing. This thing in the last two years, under 65-degree water temps, this thing's hooked up to, I think, 38 fish, if I have my counts right. And it looks amazing for 38 hookups. There's a few marks. Aside from that back hook has been changed like 6 times because they get in the net, they thrash their head and they just break it. I'm not going to show the color again because I don't want people to keep painting and I don't want Dale to keep painting it because I picked it up at that show and he typically has one about that color, whether it be that same one or a yellow belly on it every show, and I don't want him to keep painting it because it just keeps working.
Just lure burned. You just lure burned. That's it. We're all
Like
gonna buy that pattern.
It goes back to that certain colors work at certain times and under certain water clarities, and that's that. I mean, it can help with advantages.
All right, so we've talked a lot about Wiley's over the last hour and a half. So what do you guys think? Is there anything else we want to bring up? Anything else you guys want to touch on?
They're terrible. Don't buy them. Don't fish them.
Don't buy them. Don't fish them.
Yes, don't. Just don't. Stay away. Spend your money on other stuff.
So one last thing, Nick, you want to give us a little spiel on the Muskie permit? I think it's important to just mention this one.
I just tried to buy my license today. It's a little bit difficult now with the new system, but you get the Muskie voluntary permit, which helps out a ton. There's a couple great podcasts with Jared Sayers from the Fish Commission, who's the I can't remember his exact title, but he's the muskie man, raises all the muskies at the Linesville hatchery, and that permit goes to some I guess extracurricular upgrades that they can get. I know that he talked a little bit about water heaters for the tanks that help the muskies grow a little quicker, get the temperatures up earlier, get them eating faster. And then I think some tank upgrades that they were doing and otherwise. And if that helps Jared out, helps us out. So he's a great guy, super helpful, super knowledgeable, like one of the best, I guess, public employees I could ever think of. I've, quizzed on things on, random questions I had on weekends and stuff, found, fingerling muskies, random places that you wouldn't think. And then he'll, answer your questions with no question. And I know he works pretty closely with Joel as far as getting minnows for the muskies, and just a great cause and great guy. And that permit directly helps him out raising our muskies that we end up getting, all sorts of pleasure and joy out of. So can't say enough about the voluntary permit.
All right.
Yeah, I mean, one thing I'll touch on with it, it's cheap. I mean,
Yep.
As muskie fishermen, we throw a ton of money. I mean, any one trip, even if I drive a mile down to the river here, the Allegheny River, it's right below my house. I spend more than $12 in a day pretty easily, where, you put this money towards what we're all after, the muskie. It's just a great thing. You're always going to have the guys that are going to say, well, I don't know, I don't feel like throwing any more money in. That's never going to change. We're always going to have that. But, as they see results, I think their eyes will open up too, that this is a good thing. The money's being used in the right way. Like I said, I think I bought my license either January 1st or 2nd, and I think it was $50 with Lake Erie permit, trout stamp, everything. $50. Still, any one trip pretty much I go on cost me $50, and that's good for a whole year.
Yeah.
Can do whatever, fish wherever, whenever. So, I mean, to me, buying a permit is money well spent.
Yeah.
And I think as it goes on, we're going to see the results every year. So
one thing to add to that is with prior guys working in the Fish Commission, like Larry Hines and Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Joe also did that, did he not?
Yeah, Joe was a retired WCW, Water Conservation Officer.
Yeah.
WCO, Water Conservation Officer. So he had close to 30 years with the commission.
So with guys like Joe and Larry Hines that had, I know Larry was a fish breeder, wasn't he? If I'm correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a hatchery guy.
His
and
official position.
And I personally know a couple guys that, I know one guy that is in the Union City hatchery and stuff like that. Separate hobby from this. Even if you fish muskies and you don't, for whatever reason, want to join Muskies Inc., you need to buy a muskie, the muskie permit, in my opinion. I personally, knowing what the permits do, I also buy the bass and the wetlands conservation permit because they go to things that I like to fish. With the muskies one and the bass one, I know they put however many cribs in Lake Arthur, which the cribs in Lake Arthur Marine State Park help the muskie. They don't just help the bass, which they're intended to help. They also help the muskie, help the forage structure, and things like that. Help those young of the year that get stalked, get them a place to hide, ambush prey, and grow. Even if you aren't a giant, you don't like anybody else in Muskies Inc., regardless. If you fish muskies, in my opinion, you should join Muskies Inc. because you're one extra number that we can say, okay, we have 3,000 guys in PA fishing muskie. The commission and say, hey, we need more muskie, or we'd like this lake to be stocked in addition to, or have a little study done on this lake. The commission's proved over the last 10 years that they're willing to listen and come to new ideas. I mean, based on the size of the fish, how they stock the fish even, not necessarily float stocking them everywhere, but dumping them in one place. That's been a big philosophy of Canadian guys, and Jim Burr's been a big proponent of that, and say dump them in one area, overload the predators. They can only eat so much. They're not going to eat all the muskies that you stock, even if they're discombobulated and don't know where they're going. They'll find a way after a while, because those other predators that can eat them at that roughly 15-inch size can only eat so many. They're not going to eat 3,000 if that's what a lake is getting stocked. If you want to fish these fish, it's only in your benefit to do it. Whether it's the muskie permit or joining Muskies Inc., I really don't care. But if you join Muskies Inc., it gives us that much more of a voice to say, hey, let's look at these waters. Get a brine to set traps over there, or to do a biologist study over here. and see what happens. Can't hurt anything.
Yeah, I agree with that completely. It's literally the permit, regardless of what permit you want to support in the state of PA. I mean, that money is going to go to a program that's going to help the fishery. And the thing is, the bass guys that are, like Charlie, you mentioned this, the bass guys that are contributing to that permit, or whatever permit it is ultimately going to help multiple species of fish. So, any permit you buy is going to be a good permit. If you're a muskie fisherman, I agree with you completely. Any support that we can give the hatcheries, like Nick brought out, that money, again, Joel brought this out, it's only $12. We spend 50, 60, $70 on a muskie lure. What's another $12? But, that's the thing is these permits are legit, and they really do help the fishery in the state of Pennsylvania, regardless of what you're supporting. So, that really is kind of the point I wanted to get across from you guys and all of your input, is this permit means a lot to the muskie community and the muskie world. So
one other thing that I feel like doesn't get brought up enough with the whole COVID last year, I saw a couple things about it, but the hugest of thanks should go out to the hatchery staff.
Mm-hmm.
I think they supplied fry to Ohio and at least one that were shut down for the mitigation efforts, and that's just the hugest applause should go out to those guys for that.
The guys like Joel, though, that have been around for that 15, 20 years, they've been here when muskie fishing was, if you caught one damn fish a day in the lake in PA, whether it be Piney, Wilhelm, Conneaut, Edinburgh, Moraine, whatever, it was great. And it's a whole dose of perspective when you talk to a Joel and you're like, well, we went out and we were expecting to be better, but we caught 6 fish. We went 6 for 9, but I figured it would be better today because the conditions were perfect.
Yeah.
I'm spoiled.
Yeah, things have definitely changed. I mean, big time. It went from, like you said, you got a fish, and if you got 2, you may as well just call it a day, wrap it up. Wasn't going to get any better. To now, you kind of, if you get on something, you're expecting multiple fish every day, if not more. Especially the lakes. I can't say the river. I don't think it's changed much over the years. Just there's more people fishing it now, but fishing has definitely gotten so much better. That's why there's a lot more people fishing too.
Mm-hmm.
And I have no complaints. Anything.
Yeah, I mean, what I personally know of 3 or 4 fish over 52 inches that have been caught in PA. I mean, that's substantial to me. That puts it. That's what guys want to go to places like the Larry, Leech Lake, Vermilion to go. Like, that's destination waters. If PA can keep putting those fish out, those people are going to come and spend their money here, and that'd be huge.
Yeah, I agree with you guys completely. That's and again, Charlie mentioned we're spoiled. My first year muskie fishing, I was spoiled, and I didn't fish as much as I wanted to, but the fish that we caught, I consider myself spoiled. So, all right, guys. Well, I don't know that I have anything else. We talked a lot about Wiley's. We covered the permit. We covered Muskies Inc. These are all things that really, I think they're positives. After a rough year in 2020, we were all fishing. We were able to fish probably, some of us maybe more than we've ever fished. And that's the thing. Like, I'll speak for myself. I fished a lot more. I took a lot more PTO than I normally would throughout a year. It was just a tough year on everybody, but it seemed like, we got the fish, and that is a positive. And the more you can fish, the more you can learn, the more fish you can catch, when it comes to muskies. And really, I would say it was just I think it's such a muskie fishing in general is just a roller coaster all the time. There's highs, there's lows. But I mean, ultimately you can get out there, you can catch some fish, you can make some memories. And I think, there's nothing like chasing muskies, at least from my perspective. There's nothing like it that I've done to this point. So, I think it's a great thing to do. I think it's great to see the sport grow. Some people would probably argue that based off of the way the fisheries are, catching more fish for yourself. But I will say that Muskies Inc., all of you guys, everybody in the club, they really help you learn and grow. And I think together we can continue to grow the sport and really just kind of secure just an excellent fishery in PA. We've got that now, but I think it can get even better. So is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we wrap things up here? Seems like a good stopping point. We're probably 2 hours in.
Tomorrow 2022.
Morrow 2022. I will vote Morrow 2022. One more year. One more year.
I mean, we'll see. I mean, there's no guarantee either way, but we'll see.
Well, I think the thing, it's working. It's going great. Everything's going like this and not like this. So,
I mean, one thing I will take a minute to say is, I've been staying on guys, being there's more club members and guys that are able, I have been able to talk some more guys into getting involved with things. Rich Roffalo's taken over as the treasurer here pretty soon. Garrick Sabeski stepped up and is going to do the merchandise. And then let me think.
I think Donnie Swink is the.
Oh yeah, Donnie. Yeah, I just talked. Donnie's going to do the fish log and all that stuff. So that takes. I couldn't. I've kind of done some of them. The treasurer position, I didn't want anything to do with. That's too much. But I think Rich will do a great job. So, if we can continue to get guys to step up and, move forward with things, I think we'll do well, just going to grow. So.
I'm going to go back to the statement from Nick earlier. That's my president. Joel, you do a great job with the club, man. I think we all really appreciate everything you do for the club and everything you've done for the fishery, and it's for somebody like me, it's a pleasure to have you on and talk with you for, the length of time that we did. So, thanks for coming on and for talking to us a little bit about Wiley's.
Not a problem at all. Enjoyed it. Kind of a lazy Friday night, so perfect time to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Mr. Feisler, Mr. Mueller, it's always a pleasure. Thank you guys for coming on, talking some fishing, giving us some tips about some Wileys. And it's always fun to kind of share experiences with people, and I think, fishing in general, it gives us something to talk about through the winter when it's cold. And, it's always fun getting together with guys from the club and just sharing information and experiences. So thank you guys very much for jumping on a Zoom call and trying to go through this. This is the first of hopefully many, but we'll see how it goes. We'll see how it goes. So I appreciate you guys doing this. So thanks
Friday
again.
night fish talk.
Friday night.
Like I said too, I mean, honestly, if you're on the fence about it, come to a meeting. Email Joel, email myself, email Ryan, get information about coming to a meeting. I think even before the meeting even starts, you'll find that you found ways to catch more and bigger fish just from one meeting.
I agree with that completely. All right,
And
guys.
I want to.
Oh,
I want
go ahead,
to
Joe.
before we go. I want to thank you, Ryan, because you've done a lot. The past few years, getting the word out about the club. And I think that's made a huge difference too. Guys that didn't know about it or were on the fence or whatever. That doing stuff, these videos and all that. That's helped a lot for us, and we definitely appreciate it.
Yeah,
So
anytime. Yep.
So we have. You ever want me on again? I'll come back. No problem.
All right, I'm gonna hold you to that, Joel. We're gonna get you on again for sure.
Standing ovation, Ryan Reed.
Nah, I don't need that. It's been fun, man. This whole process has been fun. It's been fun learning about muskies and muskie fishing. And Mark King, I'll throw this out there. I made a comment in one of my last videos about doing some more multi-species stuff this year. Mark King told me he was a little disappointed in me, from a muskie
other than
standpoint.
muskies and trout and why?
Yeah. So I told him what I'm going to tell everybody else probably after that video is I'm a muskie fisherman now at heart. It's what I want to do. I want to buy Wileys. I want to buy Leos. I want to get out there and troll and cast. And I can't think, when I think fishing, it means muskie fishing to me. When I go fishing, I want to chase muskies. It's what I want to do. But when you've got a YouTube channel, you've got to do a little multi-species stuff there to keep the masses happy. So we'll throw a shout out, Nick. We'll throw a shout out to Mr. Tom Bonata and his trout addiction. We'll do some. Oh God, that's what. Maybe that's what the next one will be on Legend. We got to do some Legend Lord Brian Boyer stuff.
That's the parting gift.
Yeah, thank you. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate all of the time tonight for talking, and I had a blast with you guys. Thank you guys very much, and hopefully we can do this again at some point. We'll find another topic.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
anytime.
All right, guys. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Thank you.
All right, Ins guys, that's it. It was a long one, but it was jam-packed full of good information. Joel talked about his best baits, some baits that have put big fish in the boat for him, particularly his personal best. We talked about trolling and casting, applications of these baits. Dale Wiley just makes one of the greatest musky lures of all time. I have the utmost respect for him, and I just really love the fact that I grew up in Western Pennsylvania, not far from where these particular lures were born and raised. So, any chance you guys get, put Wileys in your trolling box. They are just legendary lures, and they just continue to put fish in the bag year after year after year. Now, guys, since I'm trying something new with Zoom, I want you guys to leave me a comment and let me know if you like this format. Do you guys like these one-on-one conversations? Do you like bringing people on and just talking fishing for an hour and a half, in this case, an hour and 45 minutes? Leave me a comment, let me know. If you guys like this video, hit the like button. Also, do yourself a favor. Go out to PA Fish and Boat, do your research, check out those voluntary fishing permits, and select a program that's going to benefit your style of fishing. If you guys are a musky fisherman here in the state of Pennsylvania, please, I'm begging you, take a look at that permit, understand what it means to the fisheries, and please invest that $12 to continue to make Pennsylvania a solid muskie fishery. Guys, also, do yourselves a favor and check out Muskies Inc. Muskies Inc. has the ability to give you guys the resources that you need to be a better muskie fisherman. Hands down. You guys heard it from all three of the guys that were on with me tonight. Outstanding organization that'll help you grow as a fisherman. All right, guys, if you like this video, hit that like button for me. If you like this content overall, please subscribe to my channel. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you guys and the support that you've given me over the last 3 years. For now, we'll just say tight lines. We will see yins next time.